Hey guys, so I'm here to do the 11th day of the 31 Days of Horror, and the film that I chose for today is Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. And I usually like to talk about the first film if I'm doing a sequel, like just briefly, but I really don't need to do that for this one because it's not really related to the sequel, except for the fact that both films are about high school proms and revenge. Uh, Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2 was originally made as like a standalone film, and then because of this is just what I read, but because of the popularity of Prom Night, they changed the title. And you can kind of tell that because they really have nothing to do with each other. Um, but I did like the first Prom Night, Jamie Lee Curtis, not the horrendous We Will Not Talk About It remake. Uh, but yeah, Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. The story follows Mary Lou, 1957. She wins prom queen. And you kind of find out Mary Lou's kind of not a great person. She's kind of a witch. She's mean to people, mean to. She's kind of a selfish person. But she wins the crown, but then she dies shortly thereafter when her dress catches on fire because the guy that she brought to the prom, that took her to prom, she kind of went with another guy while they were at prom together, and he got mad, and he was going to throw like a stink bomb at her, and it caught her dress on fire. So she dies. 30 years later, at the same high school, there's a girl named Vicky, and her mother is pretty strict and doesn't want to give her extra money to get a dress for prom, so she goes to look in the through the costumes and theater department backstage, and she finds Mary Lou's things in a trunk, like her tiara, all that stuff in her cape, and brings them out. And by messing with Mary Lou's personal belongings, she gets somehow summoned back. And of course, she's wanting revenge on the guy who killed her accidentally, who is now the principal of the high school. And Vicky, the principal and another guy who Mary Lou went off with on prom night, who's now a priest, they start to see things, but Vicky starts to see things as well, to the point of not just hallucinating, like seeing things, she actually gets taken to feels like she gets taken to actually like a different dimension, almost like a different reality. So she kind of drives her crazy, and she doesn't sleep, and and so she's getting haunted by Mary Lou, and then the rest of the movie talks about Mary Lou trying to come back to take her revenge because she never really got to be prom queen for that long. Michael Ironside is the principal, and I noticed that because he's in a lot of movies, he usually plays a bad guy. Which he kind of did, kind of didn't in this one. And this has nothing to do with the movie, like the plot, but there's a character named, what is her name? Kelly. She's like one of the girls who's running for prom queen too. But I heard her voice throughout the movie, and I'm like, that voice is really familiar. Who is that? And I thought about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, is that who I think it is? And I looked it up just to make sure on Wikipedia, and just as I thought, I guessed it. I heard her voice. She has a very distinct voice, and I knew it. She voiced the character of Sailor Moon, aka Serena in America. Actually, in the manga and anime in Japan, it's Usagi. And I just knew because I was I still kind of am a huge Sailor Moon fan. Of course, that was my big first foray into anime, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I recognized her voice from her horrible voice acting as Serena, and that was her. So that was kind of cool. Her name's Terry Hawks. I don't think I've ever seen her in a film before, but I knew her voice. It was kind of funny. But anyway, so this is a, 80s movie. It's cheesy. I kind of have a fondness for cheesy 80s movies. 80s movies are just kind of one of those. There's some amazing ones, but there's some not so great ones, but you still love them for the nostalgic factor and for I don't know, it's just like 80s movies I can forgive a lot of things that I wouldn't forgive a movie made nowadays for, which is weird, but yeah. So there's a lot of interesting things in it, like the deaths, sort of interesting. There's some cool like effects that go on, like this one part Vicky gets pulled into a chalkboard. It looks like she falls into, well, it's like people pulling her through, and then it looks like it turns to liquid. It's kind of cool, like more more practical effects they used to do, and now it's like mostly they try to do CGI, which I'm not a fan of, huge fan of, because most of the time it doesn't look that good. But yeah, stuff like that. So the acting was okay. It did get pretty hypersexualized toward the end. Just like a prolonged nudity for like more, almost 5 minutes, or like more than a few minutes. Just, you know, because you see, especially in the 80s horror movies, I mean, nowadays too, but 80s had like, you know, sometimes they would have sexualized, overly sexualized moments, but this one kind of did. So yeah. I don't know. I know why they put that stuff in there, I guess, to appeal to a male audience. But I still love horror movies even though I'm female. But those parts I can do without. But, you know, it didn't ruin my overall enjoyment of the film or anything. But yeah, it's a cheesy 80s movie. You know, you kind of expect the way that, because it kind of sets you up for how Mary Lou's going to come back. And then she's really strong when she does. She's not like a regular ghost that I've seen. You know, she's kind of can do a lot of different things, and she's really powerful. And like I said, just a lot of interesting effects. The plot, like I said, wasn't anything like super great. And it did, for me, drag a little bit in the middle. But overall, it was a decent 80s movie. I mean, I love 80s, cheesy 80s horror. It's just different from other decades, I think. And it's, you have to be in a mood for it, and you have to like that sort of thing, but I do. But overall, I give this one a 6. I like the original Prom Night better, but there's really no correlation between the two because this one wasn't meant or made to be Prom Night 2. It was just made as its own film. So yeah, I give it about a 6. It's good if you're in the mood for, you know, a horror prom movie. This is a good one. But that was my review of Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2. And this was the 11th day of horror, 31 days of horror. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Bye.